What am I doing? That took a little while to start up. Let me get situated real quick. Get situated. Welcome back, everybody, to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm your legendary host, Daryl Wingfield. Yeah. Back with another one for y'all, folks. If you're new to this podcast is simply about inspiring you to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be by innovating and improving the human experience. And you do that through honoring the two greatest commandments: to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor like you love yourself. Simple rules. This world is evil. This world is wicked. This world is wicked. We've been leaving off on quite some crazy ones. The last 4 or 5 podcast episodes has been quite insane, if you ask me. I've been starting off by saying that, but man, we have been going deep in a lot of things. We've been talking about the theme as of late, walking in the light of truth, and climbing out the cave of the lies of darkness and deception that leads to death. And ultimately speaking, I can't do that work for you guys. That work is up for you guys to do. That is taking action. And there's practical ways to go about that. And my end hope for you guys is for you guys to be walking in your purpose and walking in the light of truth. And hopefully, I pray that this is helping you get some sort of clarity. Because almost every single thing that's outside of us, not everything, but almost everything, is so corrupted with deceit and lies that it's making it extremely hard to see. And with the spiritual lens, and not the physical eyes, not these eyeballs, but our spiritual ones. 2 podcasts ago, I don't even know if it was on the last one, to be quite honest. I know it was recently. I talked about the importance of theoria, divine vision. And in order to achieve that, you must be practicing righteous activity, which is praxis. And the end goal is to experience union with God, which is theosis. We talked about the enslaved mindset versus the free one, an enslaved spirit versus a free spirit, and being a slave to the passions. And in our very last podcast episode, we talked about the father of many nations, Abraham. And St. Paul talked about this in Galatians about being free because of the grace of Christ and being a slave under the law, which was analogous to Hagar, the slave maidservant of Abraham and Sarah, having a child, which was Ishmael, and Sarah having a kid, which was Isaac, the son of promise. And the difference between doing things your way versus the way that God intended. And it's so hard to follow the way God intended us to follow. What makes it so hard? We are impatient. We want things instantly. We lack clarity within ourselves to see things for how they really are. And we want to see things for how we want them to be. And that's not cool. There's nothing about that that's cool. And this leads us to being very emotional. Not too long ago, I just made a YouTube video on that. On the difference between being passionate and being dispassionate. and how important it is to actually be dispassionate. That's getting a little sidetracked. To be quite honest, that's not what I came on here to talk about today. I came on here to talk about climbing a mountain. And when you are climbing that mountain and overcoming all the hell that's inside of you, you will be alone during this process. At the base of the mountain, that's where you find the most people. That's where you find the people that's lost. That's where you find the people that are enslaved to their own passions and their own vices and their own mess. You find a lot of people down there. And as you rise above your own mess individually, you figure out that way of climbing that mountain is very, very narrow. Extremely narrow. And somebody who made that trip up the mountain, this is about to get biblical. Y'all know what time it is. Was Moses. Moses made that climb up the mountain. And what is very important to understand about that Exodus story is when he made that climb up the mountain, he made that climb on multiple occasions. It wasn't just one. And while he was up there, he was directly communing with God. And through communing with God, theosis, he also experienced theoria, divine vision. And he brought down the tablets of the Ten Commandments, the testimony. And a very important thing to realize with Moses is that he was fulfilling two roles at once. He was fulfilling the role of being a prophet for the people. And he was also filling a role, along with him and his brother Aaron, of being a priest for the people. What do I mean by that? He went to go speak for the people to God. That was the prophet role. Well, that was the priest role. And him speaking for the people to God. And in the prophet role, he came down to speak to the people from God. God gave him a message and came down to the people to deliver that message. He also went up to the mountain of God to speak with God for the people collectively. Now, let's look at this picture real quick. He went to the highest point that he can go, and God met him at the highest point. So as he was going up, God was coming down. God will meet you where you're at. God will meet you where you're at. And while you're ascending this mountain, or whatever it is that you're trying to overcome, it don't matter what it is, but most likely 9.9 times out of 10 is what's going on internally within you. That's causing you to be angry. That's causing you to be depressed. That's causing you anxiety. That's causing you to want to drink or take drugs or commit sexual immorality as a form of escaping, whatever it is. Don't bring it to other people. Bring it to God. Don't try to better yourself in order to get to that point. God will meet you where you're at. But you have to be willing to climb that mountain for sure. And don't seek others' companionship to climb that mountain. God will grant that to you if needed. But you got to surrender. You have to surrender. A lot of us is having a hard time climbing the mountain. A lot of us want that climb to end immediately once we start feeling crazy inside. I know what that feeling is like. I know what that feeling is like. A feeling like, oh my God, this ain't never going to end. I'm going through it right now. This is hell. When am I going to get a breakthrough? When am I going to get a revelation? Am I really living out my purpose? Why is everybody around me seem like they're moving against me? I know what all of it is like. And it don't matter. It really don't matter. What the most important thing that matters is, are you committing yourself to the will of God? Man, I never thought, on a side note, that the Purpose Served podcast would ever get to this point. It never ever crossed my mind. When I first started doing this podcast, I simply wanted to inspire people to live out their dreams and, ironically enough, do what they were passionate about. Because something that I'm trying to remove myself from right now, as we speak, is me getting led to where I'm at. Well, especially 5 years ago when the podcast started, was basketball. Basketball is the reason why I ultimately started Purpose Served. And how that came to be was, I figured that life is bigger than basketball, and I wanted to inspire people in any walk of life. No matter if it's sports, no matter if it's art, whether it's writing, education, no matter what it was, you can be great at anything that you do. And there's practical ways to get that done. So I was tackling some really, really deep, vague, general questions that throughout the years, from leaning on my own understanding, I was being blinded myself. I was being halted myself. And I achieved a little bit of success, but nothing like great. Nothing great at all. But I was being molded into something that was so out of my control that it wasn't even funny. And all in all, my faith was always there. But I was so resistant towards it. And knowing that, me personally, I was climbing the mountain myself. I was climbing the mountain when it was coming to basketball. I was climbing the mountain in my personal life, between different relationships that was going on personally, all across the board, with friends, family, everything. Ultimately, it seemed like everything was falling apart while I was trying to hold it together. It was like trying to hold water in the palm of my hands. It was just slipping. And it also felt like during all of that, I was losing my mind. Like, we 100 podcast episodes in. And throughout these 100 plus podcast episodes, you can hear the journey through and through of all of ups and downs that I was experiencing and where my mindset was at, honestly speaking, when I totaled my cars, going through different jobs, all different types of stuff that was like going on. But one specific moment that was pivotal, that I kind of think about as of recently. You guys know, well, probably don't know if this is your first time listening to this. I was doing classes probably like 2 years ago at a real close friend of mine, Johnny, at his business establishment, at a barbershop. Every Sunday, There'd be a group of people and we would meet up and we would be talking about practical ways that you can serve your purpose. So I wasn't trying to make it religious or anything or put my faith into it, but I was trying to make it as practical as I possibly can. I'm throwing out terms from psychology, from the likes of people like Carl Jung, Abraham Maslow, self-actualization, or the process of individuation, and even things that I came up with, like the intention compass and aim, awareness, and motion, which is all pretty good stuff. But there's this one time while doing this, and I'm going through all of this, I get invited to a church. I go to the church. These some pretty good people. A friend of mine invited me, but I knew it was weird vibes when I walked in. Everybody knew who Daryl was. By the end of the church service, I had a lady walk up to me and said, "Are you Daryl?" And I said, "Yeah." And she asked me about Purpose Served. And I told her a little bit about it. And she blatantly straight up asked me, "Is this a cult?" I was like, "What?" I was so put off by this question. That I'm like, "No." And she was like, "What is it that you're doing?" And at the time, I couldn't really explain what I was doing. Seriously. It was pretty much me winging it every single week, honestly speaking. So I had a class in a couple of hours and I invited her to the class. And she came, she brought her daughter, whatever. And she thought it was pretty cool. She thought it was pretty interesting. By the end of the class, she asked, "How can you incorporate your faith in what you were doing?" She asked me in front of everybody, and I gave her an answer. And I said, "It's a time and a place." And it seemed like this ain't the time and a place for it. Very interesting. And I stood on that. I stood on that answer. Eventually, I got cool with this lady. Eventually, she let me in her home, and they run weekly Bible studies in her home. And at first, it started off with 4 people. Now, I believe they consistently have like 60 people in their home, I believe, every Thursday. And I ran a couple of Bible studies myself in her home. And she's very welcoming. She's very welcoming. But these are the other things that started making my faith join in one with everything that I'm doing so I can be whole. Like I said, even the story that I just told you guys, I would have never thought that I would find myself in that predicament of doing a Bible study. Life will send you on unexpected paths and going on an unexpected journey into the unknown. But while going through this, don't forget who you are. And while going through this, if God is revealing himself to you, do not be resistant to it. I was resistant to it. And kind of still feel like I am resistant to it. Sometimes I got to remind myself to get out my own way. Since I don't know anything. And it's not a wise thing to do to stay in my way and act like I know what it is that I'm doing when I truly don't. But I knew my best bet, which was the beginning of this year, to put my faith in pretty much everything that I'm doing. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. They have every reason to not like it. I'm not forcing people to like anything that I do. I genuinely don't care. I don't care. What's way more important to me is acting accordingly to the will of God, and every single thing comes second. And I'm supposed to respect everybody that crossed my path, and not look at them as less than me or any of that. You will learn that as you climb the mountain. When Moses went up to the top of that mountain, he was given the laws that so many people still follow to this day. And those two greatest commandments of loving the Lord your God and loving your neighbor was broken down so much by Moses to the people, because collectively how the people were carrying themselves in the wilderness. When Moses, I believe the second time, went up and came back down, God told him what was going on with the people. And the people was trying to figure out what was going on with Moses, because they like, yo, this guy's crazy. They conspired against Moses so many times in that wilderness, like to the point where they wanted to kill this man because they thought that he was leading them to their death and demise. When really he was trying to purify them of those thoughts right there, and to truly put their faith in God and truly know that God was looking out to them and bringing them to the promised land, which was a physical place, but ultimately it's a spiritual one. And once you make it there spiritually, anywhere you go is the promised land. Anywhere you go is the promised land once you make it there spiritually. But you have to get out your own way in order to figure that out. And that takes a tremendous amount of patience in order to figure something like that out. And you won't be able to figure that out by your own understanding and by your own intellect. It's going to lead you to be lost in chaos and darkness. This is why I talk about on here how important stillness is. This is why I talk about on here how important solitude and silence actually is. There's only a very rare few amount of people that has to go through that struggle completely alone, and away from everything and away from people. And that's practicing monasticism and asceticism, where the monks go and they live in the wilderness or they enter a monastery and get closed off from the world in order to dedicate and sacrifice their whole body to God. When you hear about offering a living sacrifice to God, is ultimately your body and everything that comes with your body, which is surrendering your body, your thoughts, your feelings, your soul, your spirit, everything. And only a rare few people are blessed with that task, and that's their purpose. Majority of us, that's not our purpose in life, to do something like that. But I tell you what our purpose is. Everybody's purpose at its base level, your purpose will be to serve others, not yourself. And I come across people pretty much every single day where they truly aren't serving other people. They are just serving themselves. And this is where the trickery comes into play. And this is where the deceit comes into play, right? They're serving other people. I'm doing air quotes for those that don't see me. To ultimately gain something for themselves is not selfless at all. It ain't really selfless. Straight up. They're trying to get something out of the situation. They're trying to get something out of somebody. It's not really a selfless act. And you have to be mindful about these situations, because not only are you doing it, people will take advantage of you. They will. They will offer you $1 in a dream and use you all up. And once they use you completely, they're going to throw you to the curb. They will. We are wicked people. Ain't no good in us. There ain't no good in us. The only good comes from God, for sure. That's it. Seriously. Something on my mind right now. And I want to go back to St. Paul. And I brought St. Paul up last week, talking about being a slave and being free. And what's interesting about him, he was a slave to what he was going through. He was a slave to his religion, which is Judaism. And he was a slave into his zealousness. He persecuted people that was Christians and believed in Christ and believed in the resurrection. And ultimately, on his road to Damascus, he was blinded by the light. How ironic is that? He wasn't blinded by darkness. He was blinded by the light. When Jesus Christ himself revealed himself to him and told him, you got to suffer a great many things for what you have done. And the beautiful thing about St. Paul is that he looked at this atonement as a blessing. And he was more than willing to do it. And he died for it. He literally died for it. Dying for the truth. And even making a point of if I was lying, if I truly was lying, why would I stand on this lie till death? When at some point I give it up? I believe he was beheaded. Insane. And ask yourself, personally speaking, are you truly willing to die for the truth? Are you truly willing to die towards the things that's holding you back and you know what's holding you back? Are you willing to die to those things? And are you willing to make that sacrifice every day? Every day. So, in Galatians chapter 6, this is what it says. Brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Bear one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something, when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But let each one test his own work, and then his reason to boast will be in himself alone, and not in his neighbor. For each will have to bear his own load. So listen up. You have to do your own work. And everything that you do. And everything that you do. It even says, like he says, you have to restore somebody in a spirit of gentleness. Don't be harsh with them. Be gentle. But at the same time, be honest with people. Be honest. We struggle with letting our emotions take over for us. If there's a peace beyond our understanding that's out there, truly it is. And it ain't really out there. That truth beyond our understanding is within us. It's not of this world, people. It really is not of this world. By you climbing the mountain and getting to the top, you're going to experience that glory and you're going to find that light. And you're going to realize that not only was God waiting for you at the top, he was with you the whole entire time during the climb. guiding you every step of the way. Even when you thought that you was never going to get there. Even when sometimes you look down at the bottom and said, it looks more comforting down there. It looks more safe down there. But down there, people are raising hell. And then you look up and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. This is a little too much. This is beyond me. And in that regard, you'll be absolutely right. It is beyond you. Just let go and go through the turmoil. Go through the pain, go through the sweat, go through the tears, go through all of it, and go through everything. And be patient while you're on this climb. Be present while you're on this climb. Be watchful while you're on this climb. And if you just so happen to reach the summit before the expiration date hit, come down to the people and also reveal your light to the people. Whatever happens, happens after that. But once you receive that light, you wouldn't even really care about what happens. You don't. But people need it more than ever. Right now as we speak. They need that light. That's deep, deep, deep down inside of you. People need it. Because they're cast in the outer darkness. And it's simply about where their eyes is looking. When the eyes is looking at darkness, the whole entire body is filled up with darkness. When the eyes is looking at light, the whole entire body is filled up with light. It truly is Theoria, divine vision. Use your spiritual senses to detect what's going on out here. Because if you're not using that, you are part of why this earth is going straight to hell in a handbasket. Be that difference, because at the end of the day, from that first degree of knowledge of the body, it's not getting any better. But in that last degree, the third, everything is already done and everything is already perfected. Everything. Things are just playing out how it's supposed to play out. We are riding a light beam through the vacuum of space. Isn't that nuts? Earth is a rocket ship. Earth is a rocket ship. How insane is that? Going around a fireball. And the orbit is undisturbed. And we're in that rocket ship going around a fireball that's undisturbed at insane speed. But this ride is so smooth that you don't even experience the bumps in space. No turbulence. It is smooth. That's a part of God's creation. That's a part of the mysteries. And Christ shows us the way we should go, in a direction that we should go in. And he points us all to the Father in heaven. That's all I want for everybody that's listening. I want you guys to find your purpose, live out your purpose, and experience peace on earth. Experience heaven on earth here and now. And get a glimpse, a little small glimpse of the ages of all ages. When New Jerusalem appears from out the heavens. And in there, we will experience the promised land. I hope to experience that. But it's real, people. It is real. This is spiritual warfare we're going through. And don't give in at all to what's going on right now. Keep fighting the good fight until the very end. And y'all will be fine. Until next time. Serve your purpose. Love y'all. Deuces.